called Bob. Welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show, and we have our guest, which is Mr. Carl Goldman, and we have our engineer. And before we get started, we're going to go over a couple of things. So people who have never listened to the Ask Brien radio show, and how do you spell Brien?
B-R-I-E-N.
Why would you spell it with an E? Everyone I know spells it I-A-N or Y-A-N. What are you doing?
Well, you know why you spell it with an E, Mr. Brian Johnson? It's because E stands for empathetic, it stands for excellence, it stands for engineer, and it stands for effort.
And what does Ask Brien have?
Experts, there it is.
Hold on a second. Hold on one second.
Ask stands for engineer and stands for effort.
I don't know what that was. Sorry about that.
Some feedback?
I think that was a replay. All right. Anyway, for Ask Brien Radio, Ask Brien is part of the Ask Brien Network. And Ask Brien Network allows business owners to ask other business owners questions in the same industry. So we have a business community. So a dry cleaner in Alabama can ask a dry cleaner in Texas or a dry cleaner in Los Angeles that they have a problem. Somebody left their product there. It's been 9 months, or maybe somebody left their stuff there and they passed away. They don't know what to do. So sometimes within a business itself, they may have the same type of business questions regardless of whether or not they are in the same community. And that's what Ask Brien started with. Ask Brien has expanded to allow experts. Now, experts are people that are qualified. To qualify to become an expert on the Ask Brien radio show or Ask Brien network, we require you typically to have 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours of experience. Why? Because if you have 10,000 hours of experience, that's typically 50 weeks a year, 40 hours a week for 5 years. You typically, if you're doing one thing constantly for that long a period of time, you typically have some type of expertise. That's not a guarantee that you will become an expert. It's also not a guarantee that you have to have the entire thousands of hours of work. But typically, that's our vetting process that we go through. Now, if you become an Ask Brien expert, you're listed on an Ask Brien expert page, and each expert has the ability to have a webinar schedule, a video, an ebook, a blog, anything they want to help promote their business can be posted there. And hopefully we're hoping that these experts can provide expert advice to people that may not be able to go out and find a coach or find something out there. And that's why Ask Brien was created. It's created a few years ago, and right now, we're having special episodes. Last week was our first special episode. This is part 2 of our second special episode, all relating to the coronavirus, or coronavirus-19, as I am now calling it. It is a very, very serious situation. Many people are being affected. And if you're not being affected personally and you don't have it, you're lucky. But I can almost guarantee you that you know at least one person, if not more, that is being affected by this crazy pandemic that we're experiencing. In fact, I just read in today's news today that a company called Cheesecake Factory doesn't believe that they will be able to pay their rent on April. Now, I don't know much about you, but every time I go to the Cheesecake Factory, there's typically a 45-minute wait, and you can't get a seat at the bar. Now, obviously, they are not allowing, many restaurants are not allowing people in anymore, and that's a big factor. But to have a company like that be in this dire straits, it shows just how the economic factors can play on people. And as I said, we have a very, very special guest. He's been making his way around, and he has a lot of information about this, and we're about to bring him on. Carl, are you there?
I am here, Brian. I'm really going through now my 4th quarantine. I'm into day 51 of quarantine.
So since this year began on January 1st, how many days have you been free to do what you want and leave what you want and go any way you want?
My wife and I left for Tokyo on January 17th, and boarded the Diamond Princess, the ill-fated Diamond Princess, on January 20th. And after 15 wonderful days of a cruise, on the final day after we'd already packed our bags, the captain announced that a passenger had gotten off the ship in Hong Kong, had come down with the virus, and we were now making our way back to Yokohama at double the speed so Japanese health officials could board our ship. And that's really when this whole journey began. Back then, the Chinese had suppressed so much information, so there was still very little information about the virus. And then, of course, over the days that we were quarantined on the Diamond Princess, the ship became a floating petri dish as more and more passengers came down with the virus. Now that number is well over 700 who came down with the virus, including me.
Well, I read somewhere that 17 days after everybody left the ship, 17 days later, they still had coronavirus particles or whatever on the ship, meaning that, and what I do not understand is how you cannot clean a ship that well over that period of time to still have the effects of it. Either that or actually just is staying on these surfaces for much longer periods of time than people believe. But that is quite scary. And it's quite scary because, no matter what you do, you can get affected. Not infected, but affected. If you go to the grocery store and someone had coronavirus and they touch the beans, and then you're touching that same beans, and then you're putting it on, you potentially could be carrying that until you wash your hands or get rid of it. You're technically at risk. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as I understand, you can definitely have this virus spread to each person without having any physical contact, and that's what we believe happened on the Diamond Princess. You walk down a staircase, touch a railing, and the passenger we call Ground Zero from Hong Kong could have touched that railing an hour or two earlier, and then I could have picked up the virus. And then now I'm walking around for 2 or 3 days before I realize I have the virus because the symptoms aren't there, and I'm touching surfaces as well. So the virus can very easily spread with not having any physical contact with another person. That's why it's really important that we do the quarantine at the moment and abide by that. Stay inside your homes and go through the quarantine for a while so that right now the virus can slow down in terms of spreading and we don't end up with an outbreak like Italy had.
Italy, it's really everywhere nowadays. I wanted to, because we are a business show, I want to go back to everything you said, and I think this information is so valuable to people, but we are more of a business show than a news show, so I want to go into a little bit about how it's affecting small business owners. I mean, I brought up one point, which was the Cheesecake Factory, which, to me, of any restaurant, I was very shocked because of any restaurant I've gone to, it's the most difficult restaurant for me to get in, and I figured that a restaurant like that, even with this virus going around, they would be able to be in the strongest position to survive, and they are surviving, but they can't even make the rent. So I want to focus a little bit on the small business owner, and almost everybody is a small business owner. There are obviously non-small business owners. Most of the people that are going to be watching this show are small business owners. So my first question to you is, and it's going to be a very, very broad question, so we'll focus it down later, but how has it affected your business? Are you able to keep all your employees with payroll and everything, or is, what are the risks to a small business owner?
Yeah, it's horrible, and we're kind of a microcosm of the rest of our community. We survive on advertising and our advertisers, and to have many, many clients who have businesses where zero revenue is coming in right now. If they have a furniture stores come to mind, a number of businesses have big events that were planned that are a giant portion of their revenue, and those events have been canceled. For us, our two biggest events are our Sacramento trip that we do every year. That's been canceled, and our home and garden show where we have some 20,000 residents attending and over 430 vendors. That right now is postponed. So all that revenue is not going to be coming in for quite some time. And definitely a lot of our advertisers are hurting. I mentioned furniture stores as one, but most retail outlets are significantly impacted. And you already mentioned restaurants, and you're right. If Cheesecake Factory is having problems, what does that mean for so many of the others? And we know that from talking to restaurant owners here in Santa Clarita, and know that it impacts them. At KHTS, we've trimmed down staff at the station. Most are working remotely. We've kept everybody, and we cut a few hours of some of the part-timers, but for the most part, we've kept everybody intact, and we're just hoping that now with the Congress talking about putting in some kind of SBA help and help there for small businesses, that we'll be able to continue and keep everybody on payroll, because that's important. It's important for our economy. It's important for the radio station to get the information out, as we've been doing on the coronavirus and serving the public. We desperately want to continue that, and the hope right now is that we'll be able to get some funding from the federal government to provide a cushion over the period of time that we all have to stay virtually out of business.
Now, have any of your advertisers, I don't want to even go by name, you've mentioned some of them already, but have you had any calls from any of your advertisers saying we need to postpone or cancel or put on temporary hold for the next few months, or does that come up at all? Or?
Yeah, it comes up a lot. It's a daily situation. Mostly the event-driven ones. Here in Santa Clarita, we have one of our biggest advertisers and one of the biggest employers in Santa Clarita, Six Flags Magic Mountain. They're closed. Six Flags is going to stay closed for a while, so all of that advertising right now is on hold. Now we know that advertising is going to come back, and that's why there's a day will come when Six Flags will open again, and they'll definitely be advertising with us again once it opens. But they're not going to do that for a while. They're not going to be spending money on advertising until they're ready to open their doors again. So yes, we're feeling the impact of that. One of the city's biggest events is the Cowboy Festival. That's been canceled, and probably, I don't know if they've postponed it or totally canceled it, but either way, we've stopped the advertising for that, and for many, many other events. There's one of the big wine events takes place this month. That's been canceled, and that will not. I've already talked to them. That's Reyes Winery. They will not be doing their Sierra Paloma Festival again until next year.
And as far as your own event, the Home and Garden, that is postponed to what time frame? Do we know, or is it? We have to figure it out?
No, we're still looking. We're sorting through to work through logistics on that with both a location and a good date. We'll probably push it back to either late summer or early fall now. And I think, originally we had pushed the Sacramento trip now to early June, but that may not happen now based on what's going on with everything still shut down. And as we said, we don't know when that will come back. Now, I looked at, went online and started working my way through the SBA's disaster with Small Business Administration disaster loans. And I actually had a few questions for you. Have you talked to any clients that are trying to work their way through that?
Well, in actuality, just like many, many other businesses, the phone calls have pretty much stopped. The receptionists on the floor are not working anymore, so it's all going to an answering service, and so the business has slowed down a little bit. However, on the second half of the show, which will be starting in about 6 minutes, we're going to go through the application. So anyone who wants to figure out how that works, we'll be going through that. We're going to be starting on 6 minutes. But to answer any specific questions you have, I certainly would be able to do that now. We have about 5 minutes before we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. We're going to go over the SBA, what it's about, what it's all about, and go through that application process. So did you have specific questions?
Yeah,
Paul, do you have any? Yeah.
I will have specific questions, so we can do that in the next part of the show. The other questions I have right now is what would you recommend for businesses? Let's go back to the Cheesecake Factory, because that's indicative of so many businesses out here. What would you recommend, Brian, for the owners of the Cheesecake Factory to try and still keep their employees intact to some degree and stay in business, not shut their doors? It looks like they're asking for rent relief as one opportunity, and that would be a smart thing to do, and it looks like some of the banks and hopefully a lot of landlords will accommodate them.
Well, that's a very, I'll try to do it in the 5 minutes I have before we go to break, but there's a lot of things that came up just in that one question. So first of all, in terms of evictions and landlords, currently there is a moratorium on evictions in the city of Los Angeles, county of Los Angeles. So evictions, and I believe statewide as well. So there shouldn't be any evictions through May 30th. Now, just because they're on evictions doesn't mean you can't be in trouble with your landlord, etc. There's also some of the cities, I believe Santa Clarita has a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, and I believe the city of Los Angeles has a meeting on Monday regarding evictions to see what they can do for people. So those are coming out in the next couple of days, and we'll be talking about that in next week's show. But obviously the easiest way, is to, even if you have funds, is to try to contact the landlord and see if you can work something out. Landlords have mortgages to pay as well, and just because there's a moratorium, that doesn't mean that the landlord isn't going to pay their mortgage or go ahead in that process, because they may be putting themselves into further array by having to extend their mortgage loans, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not that the lenders are going to forgive the debt. The debt will still have to be paid. So it is a very big problem on the whole eviction side. Even though there's a temporary moratorium on it, that doesn't mean that that's just pushing it off to later, just like the deficit, right? We're just going to push it off later, but eventually these things will have to be dealt with, okay? As far as the business owner himself, and by the way, the Cheesecake Factory is a publicly traded company, so I want to focus most of it, even though that is an issue and I brought it up. What I'm talking about right now is relating to small business owners that are not publicly traded, that don't have $100 million on the bank. I don't know how much money they have. I'm clueless on that. But obviously, if they're having trouble paying the rent, restaurants operate on a small margin. Many small business owners operate on a small margin, and when the revenues get drastically reduced from X to zero, or even a little bit above that, it creates a huge problem for any business. Part of the stimulus package has been that they will grant loans to pay the rent and other bills that small business owners have to pay, with a caveat that they have to continue to pay for their employees, so that we don't have the employment numbers jump even higher than where it is. So there's no legal requirement. So the only legal requirement is if you want to get one of these loans through the stimulus package, you will be required to continue to pay your employees, and that will essentially help out the economy overall. But if you have a heavy labor business and you have no revenue coming in, you may not be able to do that. And when you can't do that, that creates a number of problems beyond that. The biggest problem is if you have a high labor force and you can't pay your labor, one, you may not have a labor force to come back to when they come back, because they're going to have to take whatever jobs they can get. They're going to have to survive, and they switch around. So that's one issue. Two, you will not be eligible to get the forgiveness of the loan that is part of the stimulus package you get to pay your rent. So it may be more costly. So there's a lot of issues. And by the way, the stimulus package is hundreds and hundreds of pages long. I don't even know that it's been actually officially signed yet by the President, passed the House of Representatives. It has independently passed the House and then independently passed the Senate. Then they have to merge those bills together to come up with one bill that's the same. And then if it's exactly the same, then the Senate passing it will make it the law once the President signs it. But if it's not exactly the same, it then has to go back to the House, be signed by the House. So I haven't even looked at the finalized version, but what I've gathered from news sources and information that I've read is that as long as you keep your payroll on, that you will be eligible to get some of the stimulus package, and you may get forgiveness of some of your some of the debt that you have to pay for rent and those items. But not everyone can afford to do that. People that cannot afford to pay the rent most likely can't afford to pay their employees. So it's going to be a very, very big problem. And we're going to have to take a break. We're going to come right back. We're going to be discussing the SBA disaster loans, and we're here with Carl Goodman with KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Garcia. With the new safe-at-home orders that went into effect, many of us here in Santa Clarita have questions regarding restaurants, home delivery, and pickup. Local restaurant dining rooms have been ordered to close. However, home delivery and pickup, including curbside service, is fine and is encouraged. There are many delivery services in the SCV, including Grubhub, Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and WeGo. Many restaurants and these delivery services are offering specials during this time. Please go to hometownstation.com and click on the red coronavirus banner. Then go to restaurants. There you'll find a comprehensive list of what our local restaurants are offering in the way of takeout, delivery, and curbside pickup. Continue to follow the safe-at-home order and stay safe. Let's work together to flatten the curve.
Genghis Khan Mongolian Barbecue and Chinese Buffet. Healthy vegetables and lean meats. A low-carb treat. Create your own bowls with our delicious meats and always fresh vegetables. Then, blend in your own secret sauce. Feast at the all-you-can-eat buffet and barbecue for the same low price. A local favorite for over 25 years, Genghis Khan is still located on Lyons Avenue just east of the I-5. Enter between the Chevron and Shell gas stations. Come and see us soon at Genghis Khan.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the Law Office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the Law Office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
This is Bradley Gross from Santa Clarita Grocery. Santa Clarita Grocery serves fresh groceries to families, individuals, and those experiencing homelessness. At Santa Clarita Grocery, out of every dollar donated, a full 99 cents goes directly to the needs being addressed. As an all-volunteer-led organization, we operate on a 1% overhead, receiving no government funding for our operations in the community, resulting in us being one of the most efficient charities in the Santa Clarita Valley. If you're looking to support the good for our community, please consider partnering with us by donating to Santa Clarita Grocery. What is donated is specifically kept in the Santa Clarita Valley, helping over 3,000 families, including 5 other community charities. Please visit our website, santaclaritagrocery.org, or visit us on social media or call us at 425-7575. That's 425-7575.
Hometown, your hometown station.
Welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We have a special episode of the Ask Brien radio show, Small Business Network. We are here live with Carl Goldman, and we have an excellent show today specializing with legal situations involving the coronavirus and trying to help business owners get through this crazy experience that I've never experienced in my lifetime. I don't think anyone has. And it's a very unusual circumstance. We are trying to help business owners go through this whole process. It's not, for many, many business owners out there and many, many employees, it is survivability. It's not just how can I make money anymore. Now it's how can I survive so when this virus is finally either A, treatable, or B, vaccines come out, which will be at least a year, my understanding, But during that year time period, we are all going to have to go back to work and figure things out, and we're trying to help people out during this time period. Again, I'm here live with Carl Goldman. We were just about, we have about a half hour left in our show, and what we really wanted to concentrate on for this portion is, so if people have been affected by the coronavirus or coronavirus-19, you are able, if you're a small business owner, you are allowed to apply for disaster relief through the Small Business Administration. It doesn't apply to everybody, and even the business that it applies to, you have to be very, very careful with these loans because they are an actual loan. The only difference is that, with an SBA loan, is guaranteed by the government. It doesn't mean that anyone can get the loan. You still have to go through credit criteria, and if you have collateral or assets, they're going to look at that. If you have no collateral, you also may be looking at a FEMA, which is Federal Emergency Act, for disasters such as tornadoes, hurricanes, etc. But coronavirus is considered a disaster, and I believe almost every state, I don't know how many states, but I believe most states have now passed disaster resolutions. The government has passed a national state of emergency, so that should make it easier for funds to be available. But just because funds are available doesn't mean that you're not going through the regular, typical loan application process, which concerns me as a citizen and concerns me as a small business owner. Why? Because these applications are not, fast track where you just go online, fill out, a one-page form, and you get your money. It doesn't work that way. It's a regular loan process. So anyone who's ever gotten a mortgage or gotten a line of credit will understand a little bit better than those who have not that this is not a simple process. There's a long, long application to fill out, and it does take time. And obviously, right now, everybody, when you want to pay your rent on April 1st, and today is March 25th, the stimulus package hasn't even been passed yet and signed into law, although I expect it to be done today. There's no guarantees. It's still going to be a process, and you still, cash. They say cash is king. I think in this society right now, cash or money in a checking account is king. With the stock market, even though it's gone up the last few days, the fact of the matter is most people have lost probably 30% of their money, and that's an average in the stock market over the last 40 days. Even though it's coming back a little bit, that's helpful, but a lot of people don't have that extra money, that extra source. So the key is going to be getting over maybe the next month or so, maybe even longer, to go through this temporary process. And even if you get a loan, it is not going to happen overnight. So people have to start understanding. I'm not trying to scare anyone, just trying to put the facts out, that you're going to have to figure out a way to have either negotiations with your vendors, negotiations with your landlords, negotiations with as many people as you can, including your employees, to try to keep the lights on, as keeping you going as much as possible. And obviously, in the state of California, you have to be what's called in the central business. If you're not in the central business, that's a whole different category. We're not going to discuss that this week. We may discuss it next week, essential versus non-essential businesses, because that's a good topic. But for right now, I want to focus on the SBA disaster loan. So I'm going to pull it up off of my computer, and I do want to say that, again, if you apply for one of these loans, there's no guarantee that you will be accepted to get it. So just because there's $500 billion doesn't mean that it's available. It's available in funding, but they'll still have to go through it. So one of the forms let's go through the 3 forms that are online, and I'm going to try to go through it quickly. And if people want to think that it's a really good subject, we can actually go in more in depth next week. So that'll be based on comments and calls to us. So first of all, there is the application. Okay, so the Corona disaster, it's called the Corona Economic Injury Loan. So first, you have to determine was the business in operation for more than a year. Most businesses are, and I think most businesses would qualify under that. But you need to have at least a 1-year period before to apply. So it's not available to somebody who started 11 months ago. That's one point. The next is you have to put down your gross revenues and your gross cost of goods sold for the last 12 months. Okay? That has to go into the calculation. And then all your income that you receive from other sources. Then from that, That is the first page of the application. It's called an ODA Form P019. It only started in March 2020, and this is, I'll give you the website address when we're done of where you can go and get these forms. So that's the first page. That's not too complicated. Most of the other information on here is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go through that because we only have a 1-hour show. Now, the next document, and these are just some of the documents. When I looked at it, there's like over 2,000 pages of documents, which is insane because we're just trying to help people out. Another document is your personal financial statement for disaster programs. So for under this application, and I'm not going to give every application number because we'll be here all day, but essentially you have to do what we call a balance sheet. So a balance sheet, you have to list the cash on hand, your savings account, your IRA or retirement account is listed, accounts receivable, and the question about accounts receivable, which is confusing to me, is accounts receivable. How do you determine that? Because right now in our economy, who's to say that if you have $50,000 to ads that you ran this month, who's to say that you're going to get your $50,000 back? I think bad debt is going to be a huge expense. Nobody knows what that is, and to be listing that as an asset is kind of a little tricky. Then they have life insurance, which is cash surrender value. So if you have, sometimes people have a policy that's $500,000 or $300,000, and it's term. That's not what we're referring to. There are some policies called whole life policies that actually have a cash value, but that has to be listed. And then your stocks and bonds that you own, any real estate, any automobiles, and any other personal property, including jewelry. That's a lot of assets to be listed in there. And even though people have lost a lot of money in the economy, that's a lot of money that's going to look up on the assets when they come through. Then you have your, and this is a personal statement. Then you also need to do one for your business. Then you have on your liabilities, money that you owe people, notes of promissory notes or loans that you owe to other people, any loan on life insurance, any mortgages on real estate, any unpaid taxes, which could become a bigger problem as we go through this. And then the other part of the personal statement is you have to list your sources of income. So your salary, your investment income, your real estate income, and your income from business. That is a lot of stuff to be putting into an application, and obviously that's just one page. That's the first page of the personal financial. Then after that, you have to list any loans, lines of credit, or anything with a bank. You have to list all your stock has to be described. So if you own 200 shares of Apple stock, then you have to write that down, how much you paid for it, and how much it's worth. So they know, if you've got a capital gain coming out of that. Then real estate, there's a whole bunch of items on real estate. The type of real estate, is it a primary residence, is it a rental, is it land, is it an office building, the address, the date purchased, the original cost, the present market value, the mortgage lender, the mortgage account number, balance, etc. So what I'm saying here, and I could go through the whole form. This is just one 4-page set, but the point here is that you have to show assets and show income and show something to be able to get this loan. It's not just going out there and getting a loan because, hey, I've been in a disaster. The $1,200 that you're supposed to get, if you make less than $75,000, that's going to you no matter what. There's no precondition on that. There are some conditions, but it's not a precondition based on anything else. If you made $1 million the last 3 years, but the last 2 years you're retired and have no income, or $10,000 of income, you probably get $1,200. But in this stimulus package here, that's the personal financial statement that has to be filled out for anyone. There's many, many pages as part of this whole application. Another page we have here is the home or sole proprietor loan application. So that's going to be based on either A, your home, or B, if you actually have a business, sole proprietor. So for that, and obviously they're asking you, are you an SBA, are you a U.S. citizen? So I'm not sure how that applies, whether or not there's a restriction or not. I'm thinking that it would be. Then you have to list, your property, what was damaged. For instance, if your house was damaged, you have to list, is this your primary residence or your vacation home? Do you own it or not? If it's your business, the same thing. You have to decide on your business. They're asking you, are you self-employed? Do you have employees? How much are your employees being paid? What's your income for that? All these various items that are going through. If you have a mortgage, who the mortgage lender is, real estate taxes, insurance information. Now, one of the things that we brought up last week, and I'd like to again go over with you, is there are some people out there that may have taken out a business policy, and in the business policy, it may be what's called business interruption insurance. And business interruption insurance is not popular, and it may not be standard, but you may have it, and this is a very, very good time to grab your insurance policy or call your broker and try to look through it to see if you have that type of policy. Because if you do, this is exactly the type of situation we're talking about. And what I'm referring to, by the way, are people that have lost income over this. Obviously, if you're owning a grocery store or mini market, you may be doing great. So that's not really going to apply, although you still may have a way to get around to get along. But the reality is the first place I would look is to find out, call your broker. If you can't contact your broker, then try to get a copy of your policy and see whether or not you have some minimal amount of business interruption insurance. Because business interruption is, through no fault of your own, your business stops. Let's say you're in a mall and your store was, the building burnt down. Well, you're not only dealing with fire insurance issues in the mall, you're also dealing with the fact that you could not continue to operate. Same thing for a flood or a tornado or the coronavirus. So if you have these issues, and by the way, it has not been litigated yet because we haven't dealt with pandemics much in America. The biggest ones, have been around, but in the last 50 years, there hasn't been a big pandemic like we're experiencing. But I believe that the coronavirus would qualify under the business interruption policy if you have one, and that can be very good. I mean, I was looking into a policy just from my own law office, and they had one policy that covered all my expenses. Well, that would be super. I never ended up getting it, but the reality is, if you have all your expenses paid through a business interruption policy, you can pretty much get through this problem. But this is really going to be a short-term issue in one sense and a long-term issue in another. The short-term is, how do I survive till I get any monies or till my business can reopen? That's part A. Part B, what damage is going to happen to our economy between now and then? Some jobs and businesses may be gone forever. I mean, if a restaurant chain closes down, that restaurant chain closes down. Others may come in to fill the void over time, but that's going to be a big factor. Supply chains, vendors, etc. Everybody is being affected by this to a certain extent, and when you are affected, you are putting yourself in a position where you run the risk that you can be out of business permanently. And I hate to say it, but I think bankruptcies are going to skyrocket at some point unless we get this under control. But the short term is getting through this process. The long term is it will damage the economy. Will the economy come back? Yes. We're America. We've always come back. We've always figured out ways to do things. How long it'll take, that's a question that not everyone knows yet, and it depends on how much damage is done to the economy right now to the long-term effects of our economy. So those are issues that we have to deal with. But right now, you also, if you have no income and you have no expenses and you're running a business, you certainly can go through FEMA, which is Federal Emergency Act. And also, they are now trying to pass resolutions. It hasn't happened yet, but they are trying to pass bills now that allow even self-employed and independent contractors that I'm not sure how they're going to be able to do this, that haven't yet paid in to the unemployment insurance to be able to obtain unemployment insurance, which certainly would be a very, very good thing if you can actually get unemployment if you're self-employed or an independent contractor. You won't be able to get that, though, under the old policies, but I think they're trying to loosen them up to try to allow people to get unemployment because they want people to try to get some money. But at the end of the day, an employee having money is helpful for your business down the road. Right now, most people are in survival mode. When you're in survival mode, the only thing you are attempting to do is figure out how to get through the next few days. And April 1st, I think most people will be able to get through it. But my bigger concern is if this lasts longer, I think that things may skyrocket by May 1st, because if we haven't gotten any relief by then, and yes, you may or may not get your $1,200 checks, which has value, but to be able to pay the May rent and the employees in May, it's going to be a lot different than paying them in April, because we did have 10 days of work in March. We did have some things coming in, and so some people may have a little bit of savings to be able to get through it. But once you start hitting May, and if we, God forbid, have to go past that to June, that's when things, they talk about the curve for health. That's where the curve for the economy and for people living in it are going to start to really experience things. Hopefully, the government is, understands this based on the fact that they passed the stimulus packages. City councils are meeting to try to avoid evictions and try to avoid foreclosures at the moment, at least for the next 60 to 90 days. Banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Chase have all agreed to put a moratorium on foreclosures. And not only that, but I believe if you have an FHA loan, which is on your personal home, that they're now not only can they not evict you, but they cannot report it to the credit bureaus, which is also going to have an important, valuable fact to you. So we're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
A social distancing tip.
While the CDC urges you to avoid close contact, like hugging or shaking hands, there are other non-physical ways to say hello. Wave, wink, use sign language, salute, smile, give the peace sign, throw up an air high five, do jazz hands. Remember, stay a minimum of 6 feet or 2 arms length away from others, and stay home if you can. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Garcia. With the new safe-at-home orders that went into effect, many of us here in Santa Clarita have questions regarding restaurants, home delivery, and pickup. Local restaurant dining rooms have been ordered to close. However, home delivery and pickup, including curbside service, is fine and is encouraged. There are many delivery services in the SCV, including Grubhub, Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and WeGo. Many restaurants and these delivery services are offering specials during this time. Please go to hometownstation.com and click on the red coronavirus banner. Then go to restaurants. There you'll find a comprehensive list of what our local restaurants are offering in the way of takeout, delivery, and curbside pickup. Continue to follow the safe-at-home order and stay safe. Let's work together to flatten the curve.
The City of Santa Clarita is working closely with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health to monitor the coronavirus COVID-19. On March 13th, the City of Santa Clarita issued a local emergency declaration in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Due to the stay-at-home order, the Santa Clarita events like Thursdays at Newhall and the Cowboy Festival have been put on hold for the safety of the community. For information, go to santa-clarita.com. For important updates, visit the emergency blog at santaclaritaemergency.com.
At Advanced Audiology, we know how important hearing is to you, your loved ones, your work success, your safety, and your ability to stay in the game. Most people won't admit hearing loss to themselves or others. We make it easy for you. Today's digital hearing aids come in a variety of styles, including invisible. All feature-rich, providing unparalleled hearing quality, wearing comfort, and automation that simplifies your life. Don't be fooled by our imitators. There's only one Advanced Audiology with the purple sign next to AAA on Valencia Boulevard.
If you have a business problem, if someone doesn't honor their agreement and you need an aggressive attorney with over 27 years experience, the law office of Peter Bronstein has helped partners resolve disputes, franchisees resolve disputes, and other business owners who have a challenge. Let the law office of Peter Bronstein take your stress away. Visit lacorporateattorney.com. Don't wait too long and lose your rights. Solve your business challenge problem today. Visit lacorporateattorney.com.
It's like no other station I've ever listened to. It's great.
Your hometown station.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show with our special guest, Carl Golden, who has had quite an experience over the last, 60, 90 days. I mean, it seems to me, Carl, between the cruise ship and the aftermath of that and all the other things that are going on, plus the staying home, it seems to me like you've been quarantined since 2020. But,
yeah, just about.
Having said that, so my question goes to, how do you run a business when you're quarantined?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we travel a bunch, and so right from the start, when my wife Jerry and I travel, we bring along our laptop. We have Go to My PC, which is a software program that allows my wife to access her computer at work, and all of us are learning to do that now remotely. So we're already dialed in with a traveling office, and even because we're such hands-on owners, even when we're on vacation, we're putting in 4, 5, 6 hours a day. That's vacation for us with work. So when we knew that we were quarantined for 14 days on the Diamond Princess, we had to roll up our sleeves, get our staff on board to cover for the remainder of the time, and what then ended up being even longer than 14 days. Now it's been a few months. Our staff has been stellar in picking up the tests that we're not able to do. And obviously we had to juggle and change all appointments that we had made, but working remotely now is not that difficult. Yes, it impacts our business, and it makes a big difference because going out and meeting people face-to-face, doing sales calls, being involved in the community, all that is critical for our business, and that's missing right now and has been missing from my plate since mid-January. So that's a tricky thing, but people can do a lot of work remotely and get themselves into a habit. What I recommend and what I did is I got up in the morning, made my bed, got dressed, and so I wasn't sitting there in my pajamas working away. I got dressed, went on the computer. I happen to be writing a journal about my experiences that we've been publishing on hometownstation.com, so I'd spend a few hours writing the day's journal in there, answering emails, talking to people, and then working for the business via emails, texting, phone calls. That was the way that became the new way for 2020, working that way remotely.
Well, I can only imagine if this happened 30 years ago, because the internet at that time was not prevalent like it is today, and you would have been a lot more disconnected without that. I mean, phone calls from a cruise ship would be ridiculous, and trying to do anything without online banking or online stuff would be very, very complicated. It's amazing, and yet, here we are. It's 2020, and we've got this pandemic, and we're kind of paralyzed economically and paralyzed as a society because everything has stopped. Not everything, but many things that we enjoy are releases, the stress releases, right? You can't go out and just, I'm not talking about going to a restaurant or a bar. I'm talking about even just go down, take your kids to the playground or go down to a bowling alley or something. Even these things have been stopped for the social distancing. And so there's really no stress release. I would think that is probably got to be the thing. Plus, have closing the gyms, unless you have your own personal gym at home, you do go a little bonkers. So what did you do to release your stress on a daily basis while you were quarantined?
Yeah, and I made sure to keep my stress down to a minimum because stress, as you know, is the worst thing for your immune system. So being stressed out does not help. So I followed the rules of, number one, living for the present, living for that day, taking it one day at a time, not dwelling on the past, and certainly not trying to predict what the future was going to be, particularly in my case where it took 29 days for me to shed the virus completely and be released from medical care in Omaha. and each day I would come back with another positive test that was meant I now had to stay another 48 hours in the loop, and I just did my best to not make it get the better of me. I just said, okay, it's one day at a time. I'll take it. I can make it through another day, and then start appreciating some of the little things in life. And we couldn't open a window during our whole time in Omaha. I was in Omaha 29 days, and I could not open a window. There was one day where it had snowed, and Omaha was blanketed with snow, which was beautiful, and for me being a Southern California boy, it was a real treat, but I couldn't open my window to even enjoy the snow. I kidded because a nurse had been sticking a swab deep up my nostril, and she finishes, and in her nice Nebraska voice says, is there anything else I can do for you? And I said, yeah, just go outside, get a couple of snowballs, come in and hit me with them. She thought I was kidding.
Carla,
you're listening to KHTS.
Yeah, we're sorry to cut you off, Carl.
Thank you very much. Have a seat. Bye.